I'm Scott Smith. I'm a lead program manager on the Visual Studio for Devices team. And I'm actually really excited to be here because I get the opportunity to show you some of the new features that are in Visual Studio for the next version. We have it codenamed Whidbey. It's also called Visual Studio.NET 2005. And there's another reason I'm excited to be here is because I actually do get to show a lot of what's going on that we've accomplished to date in our product in Visual Studio. So I only have maybe 4 or 5 slides that I'm going to show you. And then, if the demo gods are with me, we'll show you some really cool demos here that show off some of the features in both the .NET Compact Framework as well as in native development. And so here's an agenda of what we have happening today. First of all, I want to just give you a brief look at what the goals that we have for this release are. And then a quick look at, really highlights of the features that we're incorporating into this release, and then we'll go into demos, and we'll do some managed demos, which I will do, and then when I get done with my portion, I'm going to turn the time over to a couple of other folks on our team, Nishan Jebanezem and Tim Eng, a program manager and a developer on our team, and then we'll wrap up. So let's continue on here. First of all, the goals. Well, the first goal is that we know that you as developers are creating applications for devices. You're not necessarily creating managed applications or native applications. You want to create the best application using the best tools for the device that you're targeting. So we also know that you want to use one tool for that development. We've heard over and over again, please let me just use one tool. So it's been a main focus of our efforts over the last year and for this release to be able to bring native development into Visual Studio, make it part of the device repertoire, and allow you to interact between managed and native code in very rich ways in building your applications. Now the second piece is kind of related to the first piece in that the current version of Visual Studio out on the market is really our entrance into device development in Visual Studio. And as such, I think we did a lot of great things, but there were some things that we weren't able to accomplish during that release. And so we've been listening very closely to your feedback. We've been watching the news groups. We've been spending time with customers. We've been having special labs for developers where we're getting that feedback and finding out what you really want us to do different. And based on that feedback, we've extended the tool set. So just to look at some of those extensions, that includes, and as I kind of indicated in the first goal, we've got multiple language support. We had VB, .NET, and C#. We now have C++. You can have a managed and a native project in the same solution. COM interop is going to be a big part of what you'll be able to do inside of our developer tools. Debugging native as well as managed applications has increased functionality. You'll be able to attach a debugger to a running process, and I believe that you'll see that a little bit later. Integrated smartphone support. Now let me just pause for 1 second here. The current devices out in the marketplace, actually the ones coming into the marketplace right now, are smartphone 2003 models. I think many of you probably had those flashed if you've got devices like the Motorola device, flashed with the new operating system on your device. Well, that has the .NET Compact Framework version 1 in ROM on the device. And at the time Whidbey ships, it's very likely that release will be the common platform, a common smartphone out in the market. And we want to make sure that you have developer tools targeting the common device out in the marketplace. And so what we're going to do is, within Visual Studio, make it possible for you to target a V1 platform specifically for smartphone. Next on the list here is new designers. If you were in the last session with Michael Lipp, I did a very quick demo showing our new design time. You may have also seen it in the keynote this morning, where we have a lot of rich new functionality in the designer that gives you a much better device experience while you're developing. We have a new emulator. The emulator that we're developing is based on the ARM processor, which means you'll be able to take an application that was written in native code for that ARM processor and run it as is on the emulator. We're adding additional features. You'll be able to take that emulator and rotate it in real time to simulate landscape mode. It'll have multiple COM ports. It'll have the ability to save multiple states. So you can set up the emulation so that the emulator environment is exactly how you want it to be, and save that state. And then if you want to have 4 or 5 different states saved, you'll be able to do that and target the ones that are specific to your need for the application you develop. Is there a question at the back? The question is, have we moved on from ARM and we're using Xscale? So actually, Xscale is an ARM-based processor, correct? So it's still all ARM-based. Matter of fact, all of the Pocket PC and smartphone devices are all ARM-based at this time. Moving on our list, CAB and setup projects. We're extending your ability to create CAB files and setup projects in this release, and I'll be showing that in a few minutes. And then finally, remote tools. If you've been an EVC user or a platform builder user in the past, you've had access to a number of remote tools, including like registry tools and process viewer, file viewer, etc. And we want to bring those tools into Visual Studio as well, so you'll be able to take advantage of those in developing your applications. So with that, I get to move over and run into demos. So how long did that take? That took about 6 minutes of slides. So let's see what we have. I'm going to switch over to my laptop here. And bring up Visual Studio and start a new device application. And you'll see things are a little bit different than last time, but more or less, here's the new project wizard, and we can create a new C# project, smart device application. And here's our new project wizard. See that we can target Pocket PC or smartphone. And as I said earlier, we target smartphone V1 NetCF out of the box. When the new version of smartphones come out into the marketplace, there'll be a new SDK that will plug into Visual Studio and allow you to do development for .NET Compact Framework V2 applications within Visual Studio, and it'll be a seamless integration. And you'll also notice in this dialog, if you look in the bottom list there, that we have new project types. We have the Windows Control Library, which is user control based applications, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute. But for now, let's create this Pocket PC application and see what the environment looks like. So just as by a show of hands, I want to ask 2 questions. First of all, how many of you were in the last talk that Michael Lipp gave? Looks like the majority, well, about half, maybe a little bit more than half. And then secondly, how many were at the keynote this morning? Everybody? Almost, looks like maybe 2/3, 3/4. Okay, so that'll help me understand what I've already shown you or what you've already seen. So here's our design environment or development environment. You can see that we have the rich look and feel of the device in the designer, which is awesome. You can see that if I take controls, for example, the button control, and drop it onto the form, it looks like the button on a Pocket PC as opposed to on a Windows form. Similarly, combo box looks like a Pocket PC combo box, and all of our controls generate the correct UI at design time. I have other features. For example, this frame around the form, I can turn it off and on. It also has the ability to generate its own event handlers for key presses. So if I click on an area of the form, then that takes me into code view, and you can see that I have the key down event handler that with all of the if statements associated for the available key press codes. That's kind of cool. Let's go back to our form and delete this code, or excuse me, those controls. What I'd like to do though right now is show you another new feature that I mentioned earlier, the fact that we can create a Windows user control. And this is new for devices in this version, or in the .NET Compact Framework version 2. And to do that, I'm going to add a new project to this solution. And again, go into my Smart Device Application wizard, and then select the Windows Control Library. This now adds a user control project to my solution and brings up the user control designer. If you're familiar with doing this on the desktop, then we have exactly the same look and feel. Just after the last presentation, I had an individual come up to me and say, do I get user controls? And the answer is yes. And so I already know there's lots of excitement out there. I know that this has also been a common request from our customers to provide user control functionality. In addition to user controls, we have inherited forms are also supported. So it's a similar concept where you have the ability to create a customized or customizable and reusable component for your applications. So let's see how we can quickly create a user control. And I want to show off just a couple of the features of both the .NET Compact Framework and how user controls work. So this will be a simple application, not something that you would necessarily go out and be excited to use in your applications, but it will show off some of the cool features behind user control. So let's start off by adding a vertical scroll bar to our user control. And I want this scroll bar to always dock to the right-hand side, so I'm going to use the docking feature. And dock that to the right-hand side. Now, the second thing I want to do is just add a text box to my user control. I'm going to set this up, and let me modify some properties of this so that I can just have it be square, and I'll change the text on it. Change multi-line to true. That lets me make it square. And then we'll just set that to color. What I'm going to do with this text box is actually change the background color of the text box at runtime. And it'll change based on where I position the slider. But before I do that, I want to use another new feature of the .NET Compact Framework, which is anchoring. And anchoring is the ability to make sure that the control that we have here is always a preset distance from any side. So by default, the control is anchored to the top and left. But if I want it to maintain a constant frame, I can select the control, go to anchor, and use this little designer here to set it to anchor on all sides. Now if I go back to the form and stretch it, you see that it follows correctly that I've anchored it on all sides. Now I need to just add one more thing to this cool little control, and that's a panel control. I want to put a panel control around this text box. And when I do that, what's actually happening here is the text box knew that I drew this panel around it, so it loaded itself or it attached itself to the panel, and the property that I just set for the text box is now applied to the panel control. But what I'd really like to do is have the panel control also be anchored to my user control. So let me just do that as well very quickly. The panel is selected. Set the anchor, and now we're good. Now all of this should just float around. Okay. Now that's okay. I mean, this means that I can now take this and go and reuse it, but I need to be able to customize it as well. So the customization that I want to make is add some code, as I said, to make that color text box flash colors when I change the position of the slider. So let me go into code, and the first thing I want to do is add an array of colors to my form. You'll notice I have some snippets that I've saved over here in the text box. I'm just going to take this color array snippet, drag and drop it onto my form, and you see this is a very simple color array that gives me red, green, and blue in the array. And now I want to use that with the slider. So if I go back to the design time on the user control, I can double click on this slider and then add more code. This would be just another snippet that I have here to change the back color based on the position. And it does exactly what I said. You can see that I'm using Modular to say, okay, whatever the position is of the slider control, go and find the modular value or the remainder value of and use value 1, 2, or 3 within my array to bring back a color. So much easier done than said, but that's what it does. Finally, I want to be able to add a public property to this control. And the public property is going to also deal with color, and what I'm going to do is add the ability to change the back color of the panel that I have the text box in to whatever control color the user wants. And let me scroll back up to the top of the form and add a piece of code here. You can see, let me scroll up so everyone can see that. So here's a very simple property that exposes panel color, and then we'll get the panel color from the panel itself or set it based on what the user chooses. So with that, I think I have all the code I need to be able to use this control. So let's go back to the design time. I'm actually going to go back to the form, and I'm going to build this control. Now, by having both the Windows project and the user control project in the same solution, I can take advantage of some cool features here. So first of all, I'm just going to build that user control by right-clicking and then build. And if you watch the top of the toolbox on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll notice that a user control was added to my toolbox. Well, this is the user control I just built, obviously. Let me drag and drop that onto the form. And that should paint the control that I just built. And the control itself should obey all the properties that I set it for it. So you can see that it dynamically changes size according to the properties that I set for docking and anchoring. And in addition to that, that public property that I created for the panel control to change its color, if I look down in the user control, you see that panel control is here. Not only do I get this property exposed in the properties grid, but I even get the ability to use the little designer associated with choosing the color. The properties grid knows that, hey, I'm using a control or a property of type color, so it gives me the correct designer, and I can choose a color to use, and then that color is displayed at design time for me. So I get this quick design time experience for creating the control. So now what I want to do is actually run this application on a device. Let's make sure everything is set up properly. I have the connection for the device. ActiveSync seems to be working, and I should be able to just build my application and deploy it. Now I'm going to right-click here and go debug, start new instance. This is equivalent to F5. There's actually a bug in my current build that says I need to do this way, but build goes. Now, before we actually go and build this, I want to point out one other thing here. Managed code applications for devices use the .NET Compact Framework, which is a subset of the full framework. What that means is if I have an application that's built strictly with Compact Framework code, I should be able to run that application on either the device or the desktop. Well, if you're developing applications, wouldn't it be great if you could quickly just try out your application on the desktop and take advantage of the faster execution speed of going direct to the desktop as opposed to having to go to either device or an emulator. So I could choose my computer to be able to do that. So at this point, though, let's just go to the Pocket PC. I'm going to choose that and then click Deploy. That will then deploy the application down to the device. And let me switch over to number 4 very quickly. And let's see. Well, there's the application running. I wasn't even fast enough to get to it. And if I run the application here and select on my slider, you can see that my color changing works. So this first demo came off flawlessly. So, yeah, woo! So actually the important thing about this is that what you've just seen is the very powerful concept of user controls. The reason they're powerful is because they allow you to create customizable and reusable components. And then when you couple that with the design time, the ability to quickly create these things, you have a very, very powerful and valuable asset to you in building your applications. You can actually be that much more productive in building applications. So with that, let's move on to the next demo. The next thing that I want to talk about is another productivity enhancing tool. We've heard from customers that they would really like the ability to take their applications that they've developed for either the Pocket PC or for even the desktop and port those applications down to the device. Well, one of the problems with that is that the device doesn't support as many controls, and the device size, the form size is actually different depending on the device that you're going to. And so there's some difficulty in making that happen. So we've heard, we're trying to address that concern. And so what I want to show you now is what we've done to be able to allow you to port a form from a Pocket PC down to a smartphone application. So let me switch back to the correct monitor here. And we're going to stop this application and actually close it down. And I'm going to go to here. Here I have a Pocket PC application that I've previously created. It's a very kind of straightforward application. It has a form with the title on the form. It has a label control. It has a list box control, and then a couple of buttons. Behind one of the buttons, I have an event handler to actually just close the application. So very simple, straightforward. But this should show you some powerful features that we have in Visual Studio for allowing you to port applications. So in the solution, I have the Pocket PC project, and then I've also added a blank smartphone project. So if I click over to this other tab, you can see that here is the smartphone empty project. Now, what I'd really like to do is be able to drag and drop the Pocket PC form onto the smartphone project and just have it work. I know that probably won't work because it turns out if you look in this list over here, button and list box aren't supported on the smartphone. So I'm going to run into some trouble right off the bat. But let's go ahead and do this and see what happens. Well, it first tells me, do I really want to replace this? Let's take a chance and say yes for the resx file as well. And then, yep, I want to update the designer. Well, when I do that update, I get these interesting controls that aren't even really controls showing up on the design surface. Well, so what are they? Well, this is a concept called an unsupported control. When we recognize that a control is not supported on a specific platform, we place this unsupported control panel onto your form and then allow you to go and make decisions about what you want to do. So if I take the form and then make it larger so that I can see all of the controls, then select the top control, this list box. Up in the upper right-hand corner, there's this little action button. If I click on the action button, it gives me options to convert the control to some other control. And in this case, it gives me the option to convert it to a combo box, for example. So if I select that, then it makes an automatic conversion to the combo box. Well, that's okay, but I don't really know much about it. Let me just make one little fix up here on the sizing to make it look a little bit better. And then move on to the next control. So let's take these buttons and click on them, and I convert those to text boxes or menu items. If I convert it to a menu item, what I'm actually doing is converting to a soft key on the phone. So soft keys are the equivalent of buttons. So let's make this conversion. And you'll notice that that took the name of the button and converted it to the correct naming of the left soft key. If I do the other one, the menu item, there I get the cancel button as well. Well, this is so far so good. Let's move this back up to the right size. And the thing that I want to show you now is the fact that I've created this application and I've ported the code, but what happened to my event handlers? Is everything going to work okay or not? Well, let's double click on that cancel button. What I had in the Pocket PC version was just a simple application.exit command in the cancel event. So if I go there, notice the code. I'm using the same event handler. I haven't even modified the naming of this event handler, and there's a good reason for that. If you've customized the names of your controls, we don't want to overwrite that. We don't want to break code that you've written, so we just leave everything hooked up the way you'd expect. So far, we have everything working just as you'd expect, I think. And the other thing is this combo box. If I come down here to the collection and look at that, you see that we also ported the collection values. And so as you see, everything ported properly. And if I build this application and do a right-click build, all I can really show you at this point is just it building and build succeeded. If you look in the lower left-hand corner, for those of you that can see the lower left-hand corner, it says build succeeded. So my application ported fine, and I was able to build. Now, let's just see if I can show you on my device. I have a pre-canned version of this exact thing on my smartphone here, and if I run that, let's see if you can see, there is the application running on the device. And if I select the combo box, it shows the list items, and we are in business. So what you've just seen there is a great productivity enhancement tool for us to be able to port forms from one project to another. We're working on this feature right now. We'd love to get your feedback on how we can better meet your needs here, what you'd like to see in the design time. Are there other issues that you think that we need to try to accommodate here? And we'd be glad to take and talk to you after this session on some of these things. So that takes us to the next demo. Let's move back to Visual Studio, and I'm going to close this application. And what I can do now, it's about 10 after 12, I can do a couple of things. One of the things that I wanted to show you, I think you saw pretty much end-to-end in the keynote today, and that was using data. If you saw Kevin Collins up on stage, he showed you the ability to take a SQL CE database, incorporate it in an application, and be able to create a master details form. So I don't want to run through that exact same thing here unless you want to drill down on it. So anybody want to see it again? Yeah, you've all seen it. Okay, so I'm going to move on. That'll actually save me some time anyway. But I do want to point out a couple of things as far as data goes. It's in the current release of Visual Studio, there is some support for writing applications that work with SQL CE databases, but you have to do it all in code. If you want to create a database, you have to script it all in code, or you have to go and use the query builder that's on a device to build the application. There are other tools that might be available from third parties, but it's very difficult for you to get up and running creating database applications. And what we heard from customers over and over again was, give me the ability to create a database application in Visual Studio, because this is what we really want to be able to accomplish. And so we're working hard, and you've seen in the keynote the ability to create very rich and powerful data applications with really not using any code to get those applications up and running, or at least the frame of those applications. And we're going to continue to work on that to give you other tools to be able to create databases and create schema, etc. So we're excited about the work that we're doing in the data area. And with that, let me move on to the next demo. And I'm going to bring up this first application that I created. And what I want to do is introduce you to one more feature, and that is kind of the end game of building your application. You've built your application, you're excited about it, but you need to get it out to your customer. So how are you going to do that? Well, in our current tool set, we have some command line tools that allow you to build CAB projects. And that's great. You can go up to the web, you can find white papers that also show you how to build setup projects. And with those tools, you can get up and running. But you know what? People want to spend their time building applications, not building setups for the applications. And so we've heard that, and we are doing work to enable you to have a customized development experience for building those CAB solutions. So let's do that now. If I take my solution and right-click on the solution and add a new project, I can go over and find another project type, and then choose Setup and Deployment. And then you'll see here a new template for CAB projects. So we'll add the CAB project to our application. And here's a design time experience for building a CAB project specific for for Windows CE based applications. And also, if you're familiar with the current tool set that we have, albeit command line, you have to use two different CAB builder tools depending on whether you're building applications for smartphone or for Pocket PC. Those are now unified. You create this CAB, it will run on either a Pocket PC or a smartphone or another Windows CE device. So this is actually a very simple tool to use. If I right-click on the setup project that I just created, I can go and see that I can add, well, let's do add first. I can add the project output from my application, which brings me to a tool that allows me to select whether I want the data or the output to come from whichever project is in my solution, whether that be, in this case, solution 19 is my actual application. Number 1 is the user control. All I need to do is choose 19, so I'll select that. And then I have options to choose different pieces of that project. If I only want the primary output, i.e. the executable or DLL that I'm creating, I can choose primary output. If I have content files, so for example, if I was creating a database application and I wanted to include the database in my application, and it was part of my initial project, I could, as a content file, I could include that here as well. And then there are other options as well. So we'll take just the primary output and click OK. And that detects the dependencies. And you can see that here's my application showing up in the Windows CE project. There are other dependencies that are detected. The rest of these are primarily compact framework-based dependencies. You can see the little no smoking sign on the left, just very small right there. That says, yep, we recognize that as a dependency. We also recognize that we don't need to deploy that. So it's smart about saying we're not going to include that in the project for you. In addition to just taking the output, we can look at the registry and modify registry settings. So we can set up the registry exactly the way we want for our application. If I look at the file system, I can actually create, let's see, I can actually add new files from other locations on my machine here to my project. It doesn't even have to be part of my base project or my base application that I'm inheriting from. And then finally, if I want to create, not implemented yet all the way, but if I want to create a custom action and include that in my project, I can do that here as well. So what you've seen here is really the ability to take an application lifecycle end to end in terms of creating new applications, building custom controls, user controls, inherited forms, things like that to your application, and then cab those up in a solution cab file that then can be easily pushed down to your customer's device. The next things that we're going to be doing is actually creating a program that will create setups that you can include these cab files in and then distribute those setup programs to your customers so they can launch it on the desktop and then install down to your device. So with that, let me switch back number 3. The other number 3. A chance to show off debugging as well as native applications. So Nishan, over to you.
Thank you, Scott. I have to hold this at the right distance. Howdy, everybody. As Scott introduced us, I'm Nishan, and this is Tim. We work on the Visual Studio for Devices team as well. And what I'd actually like to, what we're going to show you today is the other half of some of the work we've been doing in WIDBE for device development, and that's native. And it's very cool, actually, to see how far we've come. When we announced WIDBE at PDC last year, to me, the product kind of looked a little like the Death Star in Star Wars. It was still being built. You could see what it was going to look like, but there were these big pieces that were still being done. And the demos and all of that we gave weren't really as rich as they are now. And we've worked as a team super, super hard to really just add all this goodness in. And I know for a fact our development team didn't even shower very much over the last year. Not so close, please. Thanks. Over the last few months. But the good thing is that with all that sacrifice and all that work, we can show you a lot more goodness. So let me switch you to my laptop, which it's not going to be number 4, is it? It's going to be number 1.
Yep.
And make that come up. Okay, so what I've got here is just a build of Visual Studio WIDBE. And I'm going to actually walk you through a very simple native application development experience. And the app that we're going to show you is a Today Screen plugin. How many of you here are familiar with Pocket PCs and application development for device? Oh, great, fantastic. So all of you probably know what the Today Screen is. Shell32.exe. It's a processor you can actually host plugins into and have that appear on your Pocket PC desktop, I guess. and be able to interact with it. So in the past, this has actually been very difficult to develop with EVC for a variety of reasons, and we'd like to show you how easy that is to not only develop in WDB, but also to debug as well. So some of you would have, for those that saw the keynote this morning, you would have started to see the C++ application wizards for devices. I'll just kind of show them to you again really quickly. We have ATL, MFC, and Win32 for devices, or Windows CE application types. And I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of create a very simple WinCE app. I'm just going to call that MDC demo. Go ahead and hit OK. And the application wizard will actually allow you to select the platforms that you want to target. And for native applications, we can actually target multiple device platforms. And the list you see here is actually an enumeration of the SDKs that you have installed, the native SDKs you have. And Visual Studio WDB will actually ship with the Pocket PC and smartphone or mobile Windows Mobile 2003 SDKs in the box. So I'll just going to make it a Pocket PC app, and the application settings will allow me to tune whether I want a Windows app or a console app or a DLL, etc. So let's go ahead and have that get created. The wizard will set you up with all the template code that you need to really just get kick-started. We've got your header files, your source files, and resource files. And IntelliSense starts working for you right away. It actually uses the headers from the SDKs that you're targeting, so you get very accurate information about the platform. And the resource editor is actually, we're fully wired into the desktop native resource editor. Those of you who've done C++ development, this will be very familiar to you. We support all the resource types, dialog and bitmap and string and so on. And you can actually see that we'll have some resources already set up for you. You'll get your dialog editor will have all the controls that you can use on devices, including device-specific controls, which is kind of exciting. For the first time, we're kind of fully wired in there. And I can go ahead and kind of tweak the UI and do a bunch of stuff here, and then in my code instantiate the resources, etc. So rather than actually go ahead and type a bunch of code, unfortunately it's not going to be just one line. I'm just going to go over to a project I already have, which is the My Today, as I explained, and really quickly just kind of tell you the couple of things that you probably need to know about this app. First of all, we basically handle a set of messages that we can receive. So when we're told to paint, we actually set up a banner that we're just going to display across the Today screen, and that's really the key thing you need to know here. Today Screen plugins in general have to sort of handle a couple of other well, rather they expose a couple of other APIs that the OS will call, and I won't dive into that. You probably don't need to know that for this demo. So before I go ahead, I'm just going to go and build this. And one of the things that we ship in the box is cross compilers for. You'll have to ignore the hack code. That won't be there when we ship. We have cross compilers to target all the popular CPUs that power Windows mobile devices and Windows CE devices. And so what we actually just built there was an ARM binary, because my Pocket PC that I'm targeting runs an ARM CPU. So I could have gone and selected other configuration types and so forth. So with that, seeing as I'm active synced, I'm going to go ahead and do a deploy. Although before I do that, let me actually take you to the project properties and kind of show you how well we've integrated in here as well. If you've done, as I said, desktop C++ development, some of this will be familiar to you. You've got your compiler switches and flags, and you've also got linker settings. You can go ahead and tweak all of this. The compilers that we use are actually based on the desktop compilers, the desktop front end, and so a lot of this will be familiar to you. There's very little that you wouldn't have seen before. And you'll notice now we have a deployment tab where I can actually go ahead and set a bunch of device-specific stuff in order to actually target that device. For example, I can choose what type of device I want to go against here. And this list here is an enumeration of all the devices that we're aware of based on the SDKs that you have installed. So I could choose to pipe it down to a smartphone or a Windows CE device, but in this case I'll go against Pocket PC. And I can also go ahead and specify a bunch of additional files. I can tell it where to go on the device, and in this case, where the Today Screen plugin is we're putting it in the Windows directory because that's where we've registered it. And of course, I can say whether or not I want to actually register the object, say for COM objects, for example. It's very useful to do that. So now that you know kind of where this is going, I'll just do a deploy. You can see that succeeded. And now that we've got the Today Screen plugin on the device, what I'm going to do is hand it over to Tim, who's going to walk you through. So we'll actually run it so you can see what it looks like. And at the same time, he'll debug it as well. So we'll set a breakpoint and hit it. And the key thing to keep in mind here as Tim goes through this is that the Today Screen plugin is being hosted by a process called Shell32exe, which is actually provided in ROM on the Pocket PC. And this has been notoriously difficult to debug into in the past. In EVC, it was actually nigh on impossible to debug into ROM processes. So as you sort of go through this today and see how slick and fast and snappy and robust it is, just kind of keep in mind that that's kind of the roots we came from, and kind of give you an idea as to how far we've come. So with that, I'll hand it over to Tim.
All right, cool. So one of the things that we really wanted to do was to give device developers a seamless experience. And so Nishan already demonstrated the design time and the deployment time. And so now I'm going to show you native debugging against the device. And so we go to the tools attached to process like Nishan demonstrated. And we're actually going to go and select the smart device debugger. We're going to click the Browse button where we have the same device list that Nishan showed us earlier. We're going to select the Pocket PC device. And so now you see the list of processes that are enumerated from the Pocket PC device over there. So we're going to select the native debugger. We could choose between native and manage, but we're going to pick the native debugger and find Shell32. So one of the things we just hope you notice is just how fast we can load up all the modules that are listed here. And so now we're actually attached, and I'm going to go ahead and set a breakpoint where we initialize the component. And then Nishan is going to enable the plugin. All right, so the plugin got initialized, and now we hit a breakpoint. We're going to do a few step statements like you expect to be able to do with the debugger. And we see some of the features that we have. We try to provide an integrated experience. So one of the most useful things is to be able to set your next execution statement for debugging, because that's often very useful. And so you can see that the performance is pretty quick. If you've used EVC, I hope you notice a good improvement. So I'm going to continue running the application, and you should see the plugin being displayed. And so there you see devices rules. And I'm going to go ahead and set a breakpoint on the paint handler. And Nishan's going to invalidate the screen. And we should see this breakpoint being hit as he does that. So that's cool. So one of the other things that we've noticed was that when we had a lot of debugger windows open, the performance degraded. And so I just want to show you that we've worked really hard to give you consistent performance. So I'm going to have the memory window here. I'm going to show the watch window and add the banner variable. We're going to drag that to the memory, and so it's already there. You see devices rules there. We're going to show you the registers. We can pick device registers, and you see the ARM registers listed here. This is an ARM device. If you were debugging x86 device or a MIPS device, you'll see the corresponding registers listed. And so one of the things I'm going to do now is go ahead and change the string. And you'll see that the memory gets updated on the right with the red text. And then now if I continue, we should see the string being changed on the applet. And so we hope that this very quick demo will just show you that the debugging experience is seamless here, integrated into the IDE, just like how you would expect it to be. And so now I'm just going to detach the process, And you'll see that we just correctly attach and detach the process. Your Pocket PC can still run, and so everything is just good. And so for us, we really hope that the design time, the deployment time, and the debugging experience that you get developing native applications is seamless, and that it'll enable you to be more productive.
All right, thanks, Tim and Nishan. So we're just about done here, and I want to just make sure that we have some key takeaways in place here for us, so that we walk out of here going, wow, I'm super excited about developing for devices in Whidbey, and there's some critical points that I want to make sure that you walk away with. First of all, is that all the things that we've showed you here have counterparts on the desktop. So if you're a desktop developer, you can take advantage of this same functionality on the device. You don't have to learn anything new. The exciting thing is we're bringing all this functionality to devices. Second thing is that we're bringing managed and native together in Whidbey so that you can develop your applications regardless of whether they're all managed, all native, or some combination of each. And we're doing work to make sure that the development experience for these combination applications is very, very easy, and you have the tools you need. Third thing is that the Whidbey tool set really is all about increasing your productivity. And so all the demos that I showed you, plus the data demo that I wanted to show you, really will increase your ability to get your applications built quicker and faster and let you concentrate on writing that core code that's important to your application instead of spending time figuring out where the button goes or how do you attach to data, or gee, I want to make this application work for both Pocket PC and smartphone, but I've got to figure out how to port the form. All that can be taken care of for you. And then final thing is you've got some bits you're going to get some bits here at MDC for Visual Studio. Some of the things you'll be able to play with right now. There'll be more working in the beta. I think that I also heard that all of the people from MDC, all the attendees from MDC, will be given the opportunity to participate in our first beta that will be coming out in the next few months. I really admonish you to go out there and sign up for that and then really play around for it and give us more feedback. We really want to hear what you think about these new features and what you think might be missing so that we can give you the absolute best product possible when we release Whidbey next year. And then finally, you saw a little cameo from Nishan here. He's going to have a talk this afternoon that digs into much more detail about developing native code. I'd invite you all to come and see that. Native is very important for building highly performant or very specific applications that need to take advantage of what native has to offer. And so I'd invite you to come and see that. So I think that's it. Thank you very much.